Gratwick Productions is a transparent,
audience-owned, and driven studio
built to serve the modern artist.
Our intro song there, John. Or jingle, whatever it is.
No, it's great.
Gratcast101 is live on a Wednesday. John, well, first let's start with the equipment. We finally got our equipment in, which is why we didn't shoot on Monday and go live on Monday, which the show is going to be every Monday at 7 p.m. This week we had to... From last week when we did the Gratcast 100, the equipment worked so well, it was such a great setup, that we ended up buying the Sling Studio. And if you don't know about the Sling Studio, I wrote a blog on Gratwick Productions' website that kind of all the equipment we use to pull off Gratcast 100. I'm hoping the sound's a little better today because from last week to this week, I learned that the gain is not actually the volume, John. The gain is the sensitivity.
And you've turned the gain up, thinking it was the volume?
Yeah. So when we needed more audio, I turned
my goodness.
Yeah. So now the gain is way down. It sounds really good, so hopefully it sounds really good for everybody else.
Okay.
But yeah, so we've got the new equipment now. We're all set up here, and from going forward, it's going to be Mondays at 7 p.m. The next thing we're hoping to add to the show, technology-wise, is to figure out a way to bring the guests in. We tried to test that Monday night with John coming into the show on Facebook Live, and he's got a flip phone, guys.
It's not a flip phone.
It's a really old phone.
It's an older phone.
Where's my bra?
Oh, yeah. Here you go. Sorry, still a work in progress.
Yeah, so we've got a sound effects board now, and going forward, you might not even know all of this information, John.
What's that?
But going forward, Jesse Kozel, our Wizard of Creative Development for Gratwick Productions, he's going to take over producing the content sections of the show.
Okay.
So each week we're going to get a little more organized, a little more formatted.
I like that.
Eventually, right on the screen here, we're going to have a little rundown of all the topics and stuff we're
nice.
talking about. Oh, yeah, it's going to be real nice.
Is it going to be over there?
It might be over there.
Or could be over here?
Or it could be right between us.
You never know.
I don't know.
Really.
But then with that, Andrea on a weekly basis is going to be our social media person.
Okay.
So kind of like she was for Gratcast 100, where she was in the chat talking and everything.
She's doing a great job with that too.
So if you're talking in the chat right now, we can't hear shit, or we can't see shit. We've got the live stream board. I'm working the board and the tablet of the show. John's working the
soundboard as best I can.
It's all hands on deck this week. But going forward, we're going to have a whole team in place. Then the other side of that was. I completely forgot, but there was two parts to the show introduction that was going to come in. Oh yeah, that's what it was. Gratcast 101. So this was going to be a best of Gratcast originally, is what my plan was.
Okay.
Where we talk about our favorite episodes, kind of give people a background on Gratcast, because Gratcast 101 is going to be kind of like
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. But Sunday happened, and I feel like it's far more important that we kind of talk about Sunday and what happened in Jacksonville.
I agree.
Both of us, I mean, we've run a Madden league for 5 years, and we're going to
goodness.
talk about a lot of the reasons why we don't run a Madden league anymore. We're both heavy gamers. We've grown up on games, so the esports community is something both of us are proud to see grow and flourish, and wish we grew up with it. But it suffered a real tragedy this weekend. And maybe it was a good thing that we didn't have the show right on Monday, because some of the things we're going to talk about here today, I've already seen. There's a great Reddit post that was a voice in the wind. That tens of thousands of comments were made on this Reddit post about the incident, and there was one person that brought up the things we're going to talk about today, and they were tired and feathered for. Everyone wanted to scream outrage. I tried bringing it up on Twitter, and this guy. I'm going to show this tweet in a little bit. This guy tried to twist around a prophetic tweet from 4 days before the Sunday incident. For those that don't know, I don't know how you couldn't. There was a shooting at a Madden tournament in Jacksonville on Sunday. 4 gamers lost their lives. Several others are critically injured. It was a terrible scene, and it was a sore loser that had been angry and had mental issues and had put way too much importance on EA and Madden for years. If you look at his Twitter handle, and you see that anger and resentment. I mean, he probably had a lot of shit going on in his own life that were stresses and triggers, but everybody picks their different thing to focus their outlet on. Yeah. What their release is, what their enjoyment is, what they identify themselves with. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason it was, this kid chose Madden as the thing that he wanted to build his identity, his reputation around.
What do I feel for that guy?
Yeah.
And everyone involved at this point now, right?
Oh, absolutely. Jeez. So we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff and that. But I want to preface this conversation with two very important things before we go forward, John. Number one, crazy people are always going to do something crazy. There's reasons that they're called motives, because there's different triggers over the history of humanity that just push people to the breaking point,
of course,
where they snap. Some people snap faster than other people. Some people will never snap, but there's always a perfect storm of events that can make a human snap.
They actually made a movie. Michael Douglas. I can't remember the Fallen, was it?
No.
Falling Down.
I think it was Falling Down. Yeah, I love that movie.
And that's an example of somebody who just, a normal guy, he just snaps. The world, something happens, and he snaps, and now he's...
And the society we live in right now is all about grinding your gears.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, what your passion is, what class you're in, what race you are. This entire society is about grinding your gears. For me, it's driving in traffic in this city. Part of the way we earn income and stuff on the sides is driving through traffic in this town. And the lack of respect and absolute insanity that these people, recklessness that these people drive with on the roads, it puts me into a boiling rage. That's my trigger. I can very much see the right set of circumstances where somebody does something stupid and either hurts somebody I care about or somebody else on the road and causes an accident, and that would put me into a murderous rage. I can be honest and admit that.
Yeah, I actually talked to, this might have been last week or 2 weeks ago, I said I don't understand road rage, but I understand video game rage, and here this whole incident happens because when I'm driving, which I don't drive much anymore, obviously, but when I do, I try to let it all go. Like, I get it. Like, okay, you cut me off. Nothing bad happened. I'm annoyed, but you're going to drive away. I'm going to drive away. But the games, it's like, boom, you're playing and something happens, and there's no control, and something, of course, negative happens. It's always something negative, and you want to snap the control. I want to choke someone. I want to punch someone. So if I relate that to the road rage, I could see, like if I was playing and someone was in here and they started poking my buttons when that happened, I'd probably punch them.
Oh yeah,
like I can see it.
Yeah, everyone has triggers.
Oh yeah,
everybody has triggers, and there's always a certain set of circumstances that can make somebody snap. And if you put too much importance or identity into a certain thing, and whether it's a loved one, a job, a passion, a game, and for whatever reason you feel betrayed by that identity, that's one of the top motives for murders, folks. I mean, like, I'm saying this because, again, everyone has different levels of triggers and all of those different things, and we need to really start talking about that with everything that's going on, because people are snapping. People are snapping. And here's the other elephant in the room, John. If you decide you've snapped and you're at rock bottom and you're checking out, and if I lose this Madden tournament, freaking, that's it, I'm done. This dude was talking about killing himself in 2017 on Twitter, and the only reason he didn't because he had a girlfriend. So clearly that relationship probably ended sometime in the past 2 years. So all he had left was Madden. And I guarantee this dude woke up that morning and said, if I get fucked by this game one more time or I lose, that's it.
Over.
Yeah. And if you're that angry, resentful, and fucked up in your head that you're ready to kill yourself because of your loss of identity, it's not a real far next step to want to take out as many people when you go as possible, let alone the people you might blame for your failure or whatever like that. It's not a healthy mindset or a mentality.
No.
But let's not all sit here and act like we can't understand how you can make that jump from A to B and like, fuck it, I'm going down, I'm taking everybody with me. There's a million movies with this theme line and talk about it and all that. It's human nature. It's an ugly part of human nature.
It is, of course.
But it's a part that I think the community we're cultivating is festering this type of gear grinding and snapping more and more. Everyone, why is it happening now? Why all this? Why only in America? Well, number one, America sets the culture. Number one, America is where everything kind of starts with and goes from. So there's more pressures, there's more social concerns, there's more social identities. All of these things are so tightly wrapped up in America. again, we talk about this all the time. Extremes, one extreme or the other. Neither one of them is healthy. Mm-mm. When you create an extreme of what America's become, where either you're a fucking winner or you're a loser, and we're better than ever at identifying that right off the get-go, early on, as soon as you meet somebody, the energies, I can tell this person's a loser. I'm staying the fuck away from them. Great. What happens if you're the loser, though? I mean, the entire society has been cultured and nourished around being winners and win at all costs and luxuries and beautiful women and all this high-end hot sex and all of this stuff. And you're not getting it. You're not getting your piece of it. You're not getting any of that. That's just nothing but resentment, anger, and hostility that we're feeding. And then every time that person goes out in society, they're probably getting rejected and pushed back even further into their own little bubble. And you just get this fuck everybody mindset.
Yeah.
And so again, the first part is crazy people are going to do crazy things. The second part, there's actually three parts of this. The second part is fuck the gun debate. I don't give a shit what side of the fence you're on. Fuck the gun debate. The gun is a goddamn tool. If somebody has snapped and decided they want to hurt people and you take away the fucking tool, they're going to find a new tool. If you decide and have it hell-bent that you're going to dig a hole and I eliminate every single shovel from existence. Shovels have never been invented. What are you going to do? You're going to invent a new tool or find a new tool. Whether it's a hoe, a stick, or a flat rock, you're going to find a new tool. So the gun debate is so short-sighted and foolish that it just clouds any ability to actually look in the mirror and start addressing the shit that's really going on.
Because now it's guns is the problem, and it's like I'm gonna relate this back to something that I heard of when I was a young guy. People would play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sure people have heard of it, and that's evolved to World of Warcraft and a whole bunch of things. But Dungeons and Dragons, paper and pencil game, you know what it was, right?
Yeah.
So some dude, he played the game and he lost it. Now he killed some people, and he said the dungeon master told him to do it. Now, I'm not saying that I love Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe people don't, maybe they do. I'm not saying it's good, it's not bad, but that's the tool. The tool, not even that tool for him, or the trigger. I'm saying it's not necessarily. D&D didn't make him. Dungeons and Dragons didn't make him do anything. The dungeon master didn't make him do anything. The fact that he was messed up and nobody talked about it until years after they accused Dungeons and Dragons. So did anyone say, "Hey, it's Madden's fault"? Has anyone said that?
Well, yeah. See, that's the other part of the argument is. Well, the gaming, because people in the gaming community are all worried that they're going to come for the shooter games and all of that. Video games make people violent and aggressive. But again, it wasn't a shooter game that this dude played and identified himself with.
Yeah.
And we're going to start getting into this pretty soon here. I just want to get the prefaces out of the way. But again, I don't think the true gaming community, and I don't include EA or Madden in the actual gaming community because they don't follow any of the ethos or integrity of the gaming community.
No.
They're there to prey on the gaming community. So the next preface I have is there was some of this started to be talked about on Sunday and Monday and to a certain extent on Tuesday, but we're going to really talk about it today. And they were already trying to be silenced and pushed down. This isn't the time to talk about it. This is the time for empathy and sympathy for the people that lost their lives or they're suffering right now. Okay. How much has empty sympathy and empathy after the fact done to stop this from happening again? It keeps fucking happening. Yeah. So the moment it happens, let's start really talking about the actual issues then, not wait for a period of time that gets shorter and shorter before everybody forgets about it and moves on. Then we can be sensitive and have a conversation about it. Fuck that.
Right.
You got to talk about it now when it's raw and fresh, because the empty sympathy and the thoughts and prayers and all this happy horse shit of respecting the victims isn't stopping there from being more victims. And no offense, the people dealing with the actual tragedy and the shit, they're not online right now worrying about what the fuck we're talking about and saying. They're angry, they're upset, and they're dealing with their shit and their loved ones right now. So the rest of us, if we want to actually do something instead of put a sympathetic or empathetic tweet, oh, it's so bad what happened, let's actually talk to each other. Let's talk about what the fuck happened here, because, again, there's common denominators in each one of these situations, but there's also unique aspects of each one of these situations. And I'm ready to get into the unique aspects of these situations. EA has cultivated a toxic fucking community for 5 to 10 years, and this is the most predictable, sad thing that could have possibly happened to the gaming community. If you asked me to pick pick one community, one online community in the mainstream culture that this would happen in, I would have fucking chose Madden 100 times over. They have cultivated anger, resentment, hostility, violence. I was going to rant about this a little more before I went right to it, but you don't even know this yet. So I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to read this Reddit tweet from this guy that in the thousands and thousands of tweets of everybody arguing about guns, everybody arguing about mental illness, which is a big problem in this factor.
Huge.
But I think the society we're living in, we're all a little mentally ill right now. The fact that we're not freaking out about a lot of the shit that's going on the government, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, we've been groomed to be a little mentally ill and not fight back on these things and just accept it. Our society has become a masochistic society, and I don't think that was done by accident.
No, not at all. And grooming was a very light way of putting it, because I would say, and people could whatever, I would say programmed to be this way over and over.
Genetically engineered. So now you've got thousands and thousands of people that are posting on this thing. Oh, this is terrible for the Madden community, and nobody talk about the game right now. Nobody talk about EA right now. That's disrespectful. All of the thoughts have to be on sympathy and empathy for the situation rather than like problem solving.
How is that helping the situation?
Yeah,
it's
like
not doing anything.
Yeah, like any of these victims are on Reddit like feeling better because they're looking at this long thread.
It was like pray for Paris. I remember the people in Paris like, we don't need your prayers. Okay, we've got religion over here. We don't need your prayers. So stop telling me you're praying for Paris. Like, we're over here dealing with it.
You changed your Facebook profile picture to have red, white, and blue on it? Oh, clearly you care. So, anyway.
That's a whole other demon. But
this dude responds on there. He's like, oh, so we're all going to just sit here and make this about mental illness and guns and not talk about the real issues? All right, I'm gonna bow out of this before I say some shit y'all aren't going to really like. And as soon as I read that post, I'm like, I know exactly what this motherfucker's talking about.
And you had to read it.
No, because right away, people start, oh, what do you know? Oh, obviously it's guns, it's guns, it's guns. What do you know? So he's like, all right, I'll say my 2 cents. And as he predicted, everybody immediately started attacking him and freaking and talking shit to him, telling him how unsympathetic he was, how much of a horrible person he was because he didn't care about what happened, how he's trying to trivialize what happened. No, he's actually hitting a nail right on the head with some of the causes that led to this, and how this isn't a shock to many that are aware of the I don't know, the temperature of the Madden community. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on screen. I'll read it out loud for the audio podcast.
Okay, yeah.
And after it, once they all started attacking him, I don't know whether this dude is so smart that he put a response that was amazing, or whether it was an authentic response. But the dude's response was crystal clear, an example of how you create another one. How everyone attacking him and trying to shut him down for adding his intelligent thought and all
could
that
potentially create another shooter, because then he could like respond negatively and like, what are you all attacking me for? Now I'm gonna attack. Oh.
So all these fucking people that think they're saying and doing the right things and defending the decency and all of that, their very actions, you can see it in real time, create the environment that creates another one of these type of resentful situations.
Wow.
So here's the tweet. First 48 to 72 hours from an event such as this, news don't give a fuck. They'll say anything if it has a source, which is basically, well, this news outlet said this, so we're going to say that, or remix what they said so it sounds differently. Secondly, considering the many examples of how this game can fuck you over in this very fucking subreddit, considering the many posters who, let's say, become upset, to put it lightly, when getting fucked over, considering warnings such as this were told to many of this community, mostly in passing, but the fact that it has been said, you put money on the line and have people play this game and expect shit to go well, to act like this was random, to act like dude snapped without a cause, this ain't about that he lost. And you go to Vegas and you play video poker, and the video poker decides, the computer didn't get a pair this time, so it's not going to recognize your pair, and it's going to decide ace high wins on this hand for itself. This is the level of corruption that the EA game operates with, and everybody knows it. It's been a secret for the past 4 or 5 years that more and more people started waking up to, and as they have, the community's gotten more and more angry, more and more hostile, more and more toxic, because people have voiced their problems and their issues to the the developers on Twitter and all of this stuff, and they haven't listened. And I'm going to show you some tweets that are 100% evidence to why they haven't listened, and it's business decisions at the top of the food chain. Again, this stuff would not pass Las Vegas gaming regulations. It wouldn't because the coding is corrupted. It's tilted. It's not a fair game. So let me finish reading off the rest of this guy's post, and then we'll get on to the additional stuff. Me, I want to know how he lost. We got posts up and down this bitch about this game doing some of the craziest shit you could see. You put money on the line with this quality of product. Number one, I'm surprised this doesn't happen more. Now you've got at least 2 people that think that way. So it's not just some crazy insensitive asshole. John, how do you...
I agree completely. So there's 3. I understand. The problem is you're playing the game and you're doing something, and one of your players will do something that no football player would ever do. Like I told you, the very first game I played on the new one, which I don't know why I wasted my money, Matt Stafford goes to throw a drop back. Somebody tackles him, he fumbles, which that's way too common again in this game. Then one of the other players on the team, like he dives to the ball, hits it with his fingertip, and I'm not kidding, it rolls like 27 yards back, so then I'm 3rd and 47. Now that's one play in one game. Imagine rolling that all up to a bunch of games and then putting money on the line when stupid shit like that happens.
And how a lot of this gets written off and swept under the rug, which is what continues to build anger and resentment, is, oh, you're sour grapes, you're angry you lost. No, we had a league of 25 guys where 20 of them took this as an understanding. And even when they won games, they understood when what we would call the Madden tilt was in full effect. And it wasn't you weren't winning because you were making the right decisions. You were winning because no matter what you did was right. And imagine being on the other side playing a game where no matter what you do, even the right decisions you make, the execution is flawed because the game wants you to lose. That happens in head-to-head games, and it happens in human versus computer because they can't manufacture a real challenge, and they don't want to put the money into developing a real challenge because the legacy coding is so corrupted and fucked, they don't want to go back and fix it. So they just keep building on top of it new features to sell the game back to you again. And now you got people's lives being altered and changed by corrupt coding. Yeah. Number 2, that doesn't make what he did okay. But the fact that people are talking about, yo, this guy had mental issues, yo, this NRA shit is bull. I'm like, I want to know how he lost. Did the game fuck him over, or did he get his feelings hurt? No point now. He's dead. He's not going to tell us. Because I know we're not about to act like Madden is some peace-loving game that welcomes in the tranquil and the chill between the shit-talking and the breathtaking rage-outs. Yo, I just saw a dude post a broken controller the other day in this bitch. I know we not about to act oblivious. The entire community is toxic, and it's because they're so angry at the quality of the product and the fact they have no options with it. They, for years, have screamed at the developers, and they don't do anything. Now we're going to talk about why the developers don't do anything. But first, before we talk about that, I want to show the other post that I don't have it queued up there, but I'm going to read it. So the other Reddit post. So the first response to this dude is, "You, my friend, are a moron," and automatically starts getting all sorts of thumbs up and likes on it. So here's the response I was talking about, how you can see in real time how this stuff starts further isolating an individual until they just get they snap. DocLogical responds, "This is why I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to be criticized. My psyche doesn't need the put downs. It's already shaky as it is."
There you go. I mean, that should say it all right there.
Yeah. Now, dude could just be saying that, which is a very smart, like, if he's a completely stable and highly intellectual person, that's a good response to put in there and give people a first-hand example of you don't know that he's not shaky and that his psyche's not messed up, and you're not further pushing this dude into the hole or the sunken place. You don't know.
Yeah, you have no idea.
But he very well could be. And what? So let's say DocLogical all of a sudden tomorrow goes and does something horrible, and now we can go back and look to Reddit that you, my friend, are a moron and coming at him because he said something highly intelligent and obvious that can easily be researched, but he's the piece of shit for saying an inconvenient, uncomfortable truth.
When did this, for starters, when did trolling become like a regular thing? That's been around for a long time, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's just gotten more toxic as technologies move forward, right? And that's how it has to be. Because when I'm younger, I don't hear people going crazy because they played a game and they lost and they shot somebody because the game didn't work. I didn't hear any of that. People yelling at people, putting them down just because they're stating their opinion, which is actually a valid opinion. I just don't get it. Like, why are they firing so much vitriol and hate at this guy when they're not taking the time to look at what he's saying?
Because they don't want to. They don't want to make it about the community. And again, they all want to act like now the community's tight. Like I saw the former developer of EA tweeting out the other day a big T-shirt that says "Madden is life" as a call. Like, you, dude, really? Talk about fucking tone deaf. Yeah. Madden is life. Why do you think this dude snapped? Because Madden was life for him. It was life or death for him. Mm-hmm. And again, 2 days later, in fucking support of the victims that happened, Madden is life. And completely tone deaf to the subtext and the context of that.
It should have said Madden is death, is what it should have said.
It's unbelievable.
Jesus,
so
people.
So 4 days before the 4 days before the shooting happened, I had a Twitter interaction with a guy that was on his high horse talking about how much he hates all the people that get angry in the Madden community. Again, the irony and the hypocrisy there. I hate you for hating this thing, and the irony is completely lost. So he's talking about how much he can't stand all of the anger and hostility in the Madden community because grown men can't express their own opinions and feedback without raging out and threatening and all this anger and vitriol. Mm-hmm. And I responded to him as a grown man with a sound response and simply said to him, "Frickin' listen, dude. The game's broken. People have been screaming about it for years. People have given feedback. It doesn't matter what it is. When you give your voice and your opinion and it's valid enough, long enough, and it goes ignored, especially by a corporation, for so long, you get angry. You get disenfranchised. You can look anywhere and see this happening with our government. Like, the longer you're ignored, we could say this is why Trump's in office. Because too many people were ignored for too long, and they finally made a drastic decision. So I responded to this dude and said, listen, this is what happens when a large community is ignored for the almighty dollar and everything else too long. They just, there's nothing left to do but shout into the void. And that's what people feel like Twitter is sometimes. Yeah. And they're looking for like-minded people that are also just so pent up with anger and frustration because they want the game to be great. And it's so close to being great, except for the predetermined outcomes. So I responded to this dude with the tweet that's on screen now. Furthermore, there is no greater sin to the integrity of gaming than tying CPU response to human input, i.e. pressing tackle button triggers the AI juke, creating a no-win outcome for the user. This goes against the entire principle of a game and borders on psychological torture. So what I meant by there is in the game, or let's talk about the gaming community in general. There's a code of ethics among game developers and gamers that no matter what the puzzle is, no matter how difficult the problem is, no matter how difficult the board or the level, there is a right answer. There is something you can do, no matter how obscure, that could be the right answer in this solution to solve the problem, to move on, to win. That's the foundation of a video game.
Of course.
Because if you create a no-win situation for the user, you will drive them fucking mad with the belief there is a way that they can win. And eventually that's going to make somebody snap. Well, how much you put your identity into that will determine how quickly you snap. This guy's had his identity in it for years and has been getting screwed like the rest of us for years. That's just cultivating a bad situation.
Yeah.
So now, the perfect example is, in the game, when you're running, there's a button you can press to do a juke as the running back. And there's a button you can press to tackle. Now, a user versus user, it's based on when you push those buttons. It's not like, my guy isn't going to do a juke move because you press the tackle button.
Right.
I have to do it at the right time, and if you hit the tackle button at the right time, you're going to take me down. Mm-hmm. There's a right answer for both sides of that.
Yeah.
Now, when you're playing the game on its own, or if, say, the human decided to let the CPU run the ball, or I'm not saying that's what happened or anything in this situation, but it can be done, so it also relates to a head-to-head situation, and you're the defender trying to tackle the guy with the ball, and you press your tackle button. By the very action of you pressing your tackle button will trigger the CPU's juke move and therefore make you in a no-win situation where you're sucked into the juke and you can't make the tackle and he's gone and running because your sin of trying to make the tackle caused him to get a bigger, longer run. That is the utter definition of a broken gameplay that wouldn't pass fucking regulations for money and gambling and betting on it. You can't have that. No. The CPU needs to time out and have its own trigger of when it decides to juke. I don't care if it's a proximity detector or what the hell it is, but you can't tie it to the user's action creating a no-win situation. That's just one example.
Yeah.
Rex Dixon is the former creative director for EA. He resigned this past year, and little by little, the breadcrumbs are starting to show a picture of why he resigned. And a man I didn't respect for years because he allowed all of this shit to continue, I now have an immense amount of respect for because he reached a point where, no, I'm not going to keep helping you rip off this community and this base. I'm not going to help you continue repackaging the same game if you're not going to let me fix the issues and all of that. I'm walking away from this because I'm the one taking all the blame. I have all the respect in the world for the man standing up and doing that. But now on Twitter, you're getting to see an inside look at exactly what we're talking about and the decisions that are going behind it. So the first thing Rex says is, it's not me, it's not Clint, and guess what? It wasn't this other guy. The guy, I'm guessing the guy before Rex. They've been through 3 creative directors and 2 senior producers in 5 years. Upper management is the only constant. So then he follows that up with this beauty, John.
Hit me with it.
So another guy asks, well, why don't you guys fix the stuff? His question was, why waste the time with long shot, which everybody hated, nobody wanted?
Yeah.
Especially when you can't choose your position or make it yourself. So many giant holes in the gameplay this year. Why? There was an exec that promised long shot would bring in millions of new users. For what it's worth, the answer I would always get when I asked them if we could focus on fixing the game was, you can't sell a bug fix. So the executives cared only about selling the game. They didn't care about fixing the game. And guess what? You stupid fucking executives. If you actually made the tightest, best gameplay ever and spent, I don't know, the entire cycle going back and fixing previous versions, you would give the user base exactly what they've been screaming for years. You would buy yourself more time to add additional features on top of all of that stuff. But continuing to treat us like we're fucking stupid and we don't know that the legacy code is fucked all the way back to like Madden 2001, and it continues selling it and adding more features, which are usually repackaged past features onto there, you are preying on this community. You are selling a broken game. You are selling a tainted game that cheats because you don't want to spend the money on developing real AI that matches the level of technology and development that the other games around you are putting out in this day and age. It's disgusting. You're using your exclusivity on the NFL licensing deal to just sit back and fucking sell marketing slogans every single year of a broken game. And it's driving people mad. Literally. I could have had this rant 2 weeks ago, before this incident happened, and I'd be just as angry and just as passionate. But the fact it's actually happened, it's... Each one of these situations has its own trigger points that leads to it and all of that. This one, more than any other that I've gone down the rabbit hole and looked to, hits close to home. Because I've seen this anger and resentment been cultivated. I've seen it grow and toxic for again, 5 straight years. This is exactly why we stopped running the Madden League, John. Yeah. Our league was torn apart this past year by one of these scumbag gamers that want to win at all costs and cheated the game. He used the exploits and the deficiencies in the coding to try and always win at all costs, and he divided the league between the people that were so competitive they didn't want to believe that this guy couldn't be beat because he was cheating, and the guys that knew exactly what he was doing and were tired of it and didn't want it in their community anymore. And it ripped the league in half, destroyed the entire culture, and it got us, the admins, that put heart and souls into running this thing on the entire foundation of we wanted a clean, honest league where everything was on the up and up, which is impossible when the game itself is broken because it's going to constantly create arguments and fights. I've never seen so much hostility, anger, and resentment than I've seen from the 25 people that came and went. And we're talking probably close to 100 different people were in this league over the 5 years that came and went. And the trigger was always the same. Somebody got fucked and got cheated in a game that was important to them, by something that was out of their control, not the other person making a great play. Every time we lost because of our own mistakes, every single person that we had in that league stood up and took it.
Yeah.
Like I lost, because listen, the greatest thing that we had about this league was that the wins mattered. We created a highly potent competitive environment, which is what created the anger and the resentment in that. And we didn't even have a single dollar on the line in this league, just pride. And the anger that it would bring out of people when they lost because something that wasn't in their control was scary. It was too much for us to continue to manage and constantly deal with. It was affecting our personal lives. It was spilling over into constantly having to babysit and drama and separate guys. And this was all guys that got along and had a camaraderie over the brokenness of the game and that. But no man, and this was what got me. This is what still gets me when I play by myself with this game. I go into it knowing it's fucked, knowing it's going to cheat me, knowing I'm not going to let it get to me. Let this stuff tear me apart inside and create a cancer growing inside of me because I get so angry at the slight against us by selling this product. And I'm like, I'm going to laugh when it happens, and I do laugh. But no matter how much I convince myself I'm not going to get upset, it's like the game takes it as a personal challenge to find some warped, fucked up outcome that's going to cross that line and get me angry again.
I've actually seen you. I've jumped on, and I've seen that says, you're playing, and it says, you have 0, and the computer has 23, and it's the third quarter. I'm like, he's probably not happy right now. His offense isn't working. He's got nothing. I'm like, every now and then, okay, fine, you might get shut out. It happens. But that's not how it works with this game. This game, like you said, it's completely broken. It's against the user. And people are like, oh, MUT. Of course they put their money into MUT and all their investment into MUT because that's where they make all of their money. And it's ridiculous. Well, you know, obviously.
What?
And it's ridiculous because a lot of people... Of course, a lot of people play MUT. I get it. But a lot of people play franchise mode because they want the simulation aspect. That's what we do. That's what we did. And they don't. Why don't you listen? Why don't you listen? We need. What's the mode called again?
What mode?
The football mode, the one with the long shot. You don't need long shot. What is that? That's stupid. You couldn't even take your guy into the pros, right? You couldn't even do that. It's just there's a.
I don't want to make this conversation. This conversation is too important to make it about the
For sure.
the
No,
micro
you're right.
details of the
You're
gameplay.
right, you're right.
But it does lead me to another critical point in the tournament head-to-head culture.
Okay.
Here's another part of the toxic community. Everybody within the Madden community, a lot of people and all that, they get huge viewer counts, watch these Madden tournaments. And you can watch any one of the streams and threads. Everybody is angry and disgusted by the quality of play that they're watching in these Madden tournaments. Because the people that are winning these fucking tournaments, they're running like 3 plays on offense and 3 plays on defense. They've mastered the exploits in the game, and that's all they do over and over and over again. So now imagine you're a really good, above-average Madden player. You've got a chance to win some money, make a little name for yourself, this, that, and the other thing. And every time you play in a Madden tournament, you lose to some asshole that runs 3 plays over and over again and glitches out the system. And you can either join them and compete on who can glitch better, or you can not stand a chance to even play. That's the entire reason why I don't even indulge in the competitive community, because the style of play that you have to do to even be competitive is not football. It's exploits and exploits on exploits. Who can execute the exploits best? That's the digital version of competitive football, and that is a recipe for disaster, as we've already seen.
Obviously, yeah, and that's horrible. And I honestly, moving forward, I don't see us as the final incident if things don't change. So yeah, this was one, and it's a big one, and it's horrible. There's nothing good is coming from it. But that community needs to be healed in some form or another, and EA needs to do something about it.
EA needs to be regulated by some sort of gaming commission or something like this. Every other, the esports community, there's such an ethos and community and bond and I don't know. I don't have the words for this, but there's you want the challenge. You want to play a competitive game that challenges you to think or puzzle or problem solve. You want to play football on a high level chess match level. And when you're put into a situation that you cannot win in a gaming environment, you're breaking the agreement between developer and gamer. And EA doesn't give a fuck about that. You got a company like No Man's Sky that they got taken over by the hype train and blown through the water with the hype train that they could never live up to, and ultimately they pissed everybody off with delivering an inferior product 2 years ago. And this company didn't say, well, we robbed as much as we could from the initial people that bought the game, let's move on and create another product or whatever. They spent 2 years for free continuing to develop up the game to get it to where that hype level was that they had no control over, so they could feel and look themselves in the mirror that they delivered on that deal between developer and gamer. EA doesn't give a fuck about that. I don't know. I can't rant about EA anymore, John. We're closing in at the end of the hour here, and I want to have a little fun with the bullet blitzes to close this out. But 100%, we need to talk about EA's culpability in this, if not liability. It's ridiculous, and there's enough history of negativity in there and a toxic community that they did nothing to alleviate, if not cultivated, through their greed, that, I don't know. We need to start figuring out what role the corporations and the products and the companies have in what happens in their communities. There's a lot of sub-communities in this world in this day and age. There's a lot of influence and a lot of power in these communities. It's untraveled waters, John. It's strange times, and I don't know. I feel like, again, I'll end it on this. With all the money on the line, if EA was a casino, if they had to abide by the gaming commission rules, like every video poker game or whatever in Vegas has to abide by, they'd have been shut down years ago and inundated with class action lawsuits the next day. So with that, John, let's get to our bullet blitzes. Do you have one locked and loaded, or we're gonna do one each today?
Okay.
Do you have one?
Sure. I got one.
All right.
I'm pretty sure we didn't go over this before. I pour over Facebook now. I'm trying to get more into social media. I tell this every week, trying to get more and more. I know. I
gotta start pimping out the show.
Yeah, right. I got it. So I've noticed that there are a lot of the food making videos. Did I discuss this with you before?
I don't know, but I love the little recipes.
So that's what I'm saying. And you see them all over, and they're like, oh, you watch a 30-second video in 20 minutes. If you just follow this, boom, 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 you can get a nice dish. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I know I've sent you some, as a matter of fact, over the years. I've dropped them on your page, like, hey, maybe you could make this. Maybe it's something you like. Has there been one that I've never made them because I'm lazy. Is there one that you've made that you've liked that is your favorite, though, or one of your favorites? It's tough to pick one, but there was one that's really stood out to you.
There's none that really. There probably is one. I've made this off, and I think you've probably had it before. It's a steak and cheese bread dip.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's got cooked steak in there, peppers and onions in it, cream cheese and mozzarella cheese, and all cooked and baked in the oven all together. Super good. But I've made tons of them. As soon as I see ones that have anything I like, boom, save, boom, save, boom, save. But there's one that I made that was a total fail. If you see this one in your stream, don't even try to make it. It's a fucking mess. It was buffalo-style fried deviled eggs.
Sounds good.
They got me on the buffalo style and they got me on the fried. Two huge mistakes here. Trying to bread and fry half eggs is it's a failing cause. Unless you're a gourmet chef, the eggs are going to fall apart. And the other part of it was the deviled part that goes back in the egg. It called for you to mix it with this powdered ranch dressing. Have you ever had or heard of powdered ranch dressing?
Heard of it.
This shit was so potent, it puckered your mouth and ruined the entire fucking batch. So even the eggs that we were able to kind of fry and stuck the goo in, you couldn't even eat them because this powdered ranch dressing was destructive. So if you can pull off the fried and you can do it without the ranch dressing, they might be really good, but no.
So the steak dip was one of your faves. One of your faves.
What about you?
Like I said, I never made them. So
You've never made any of them?
Nah, I look at them like, oh, they look good, and then I don't do it.
Just move on?
Yeah, of course, dude.
Bro, you gotta save that shit. You can Facebook, there's a little drop down in the video. You just save.
I just figured I'd share it with someone else who might actually want to make it.
Well, that's why you save them, and then when you come over to my house, you'd be like, dude, make this.
Oh, I guess I could. That's why I just try to drop it on your page. But I don't want to take too long. But they look amazing. I mean, they always do. You see the 30-second videos, chop, 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 and then at the end you're like, this is delicious. But anyway, what do you got?
All right. So late last night, we were watching TV in the bedroom because Andrew's parents are in town.
Okay.
So they get, well, in the living room we were watching. So they get the bedroom, we sleep on the couch.
Okay.
And we were watching Hulu, Unreal. We've been watching the shit out of Unreal.
Okay.
Great show. And Hulu repeats ads. Like every ad block, you get the same fucking ads over and over again. And so I talked about it in the past. There was this the George Washington ad that I really loved. We've all got places to go. We've all got places to go. But now they've got this stupid ad for I don't even know what it's for. But it's about Pat or the dude that hosts Jeopardy. What the hell's his name?
Alex Trebek.
Alex Trebek. Yeah, I was gonna call him Pat Trebek. I was
Yeah.
calling him the dude that needs to retire from Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, it's about Alex Trebek, and I think it's a commercial for Jeopardy, and it ends with Blanche from Golden Girls, like, talking about her fantasy of hooking up with Alex Trebek, and he's like, no, Blanche, in the form of a question, and that's how the whole commercial
I'm already
ends.
annoyed by that.
It's brutally annoying. So my question is, what are your feelings on... All of our laws are basically behind technology, but there's a lot of advertising laws against subliminal messaging and repetitive advertising and all of this type of stuff. You can't slip little frames of information into a commercial or anything like that to subliminally advertise to people.
Right.
I feel like these online platforms that use the same ad over and over and over again while you're watching a show, I feel like that's a form of repetitive advertising, of subliminal advertising, just forcing it down your throat.
100%. I remember years ago seeing on television, and I was annoyed, but moving in hindsight, I'm like, it was genius for the advertiser. I would watch on television late night, there'd be like a 30-second spot, there'd be a 15-second commercial, and then they'd show the same 15-second commercial back to back because they had their 30-second slot and that was their commercial. So you saw the same thing twice in 30 seconds, and I saw that every 30-second, that 30-second bit or whatever, I saw 4 times in a night. So I've seen that commercial 8 times in like 3 hours.
I think there's definitely a regulation on how often a platform or a channel in a specific piece of content or over a specific channel can play the same ad.
Yeah. People don't believe in that we can be programmed. They don't believe it.
Dude, it's been done with music forever. Well, you play a song long enough on the radio, it'll become a hit.
I've said for years, back before cable, it says now back to your originally televised, your programming. It says programming because they're showing you things over and over. And while you might not see it as programming in that sense, it's definitely a form of programming. You see McDonald's over and over, you're eventually going to want to go to McDonald's. It's just, that's how it is. You just are.
I've been learning a lot about this lately with the marketing and all of these things that we're doing. That's literally what advertising is programming you to like something. Because it's already been proven and documented that you won't connect with something until you've been exposed to it. I think it's at least 3 times, and there's a tipping point at 6 times or something like that.
Right.
So that's the line that the advertisers are always trying to tiptoe. And that's why online they now have retargeting ads. Where if somebody's been exposed to it, you can retarget them over and over again so they keep getting exposed to your brand recognition. And there's a fine line there between advertising and programming and freaking sheer harassment of a product.
But people are so used to seeing it that people are going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's just a commercial. But when you're not paying enough attention, yes, it could be just the commercial, obviously. But when you see said commercial 15 times in a couple of hours or in whatever in a day, that's more than just advertising. It's more. Anyway,
but I mean, so I get the fact that over an extended period of time you have no idea who's watching in and out. But these online platforms, right. I'm personally watching this show, and while I've watched this show, you've shown me the same ad 7 times in an hour. Get out of here.
No, I've been to your place and watched the Hulu, and I'm like, hey, I saw that. Didn't I just see that commercial 6 minutes ago? It's the same one. And so, yeah.
And it's one thing when it's a fantastic commercial, like George Washington crossing the highway.
I mean, I guess.
But it's another thing when it's Blanchett over and over and over again in the form of a question, dear. All right. So that's the end of Gratcast this week. I hope we added something to the discussion. I hope we at least gave you something to think about on what's going on and the subtext and context that can build up over the time. We can't just sit around anymore and say nobody saw it coming. It came out of nowhere. Now, the dude was threatening EA for 2 years on Twitter, and it was lost in a storm of everybody else threatening EA for 2 years on Twitter. So whether it was him or somebody else, it was very much predictable that sooner or later somebody in this community was going to snap at that company and do something drastic. Whether it was just vandalism, whether it was harassing one of the developers in person, something was going to cross the line, and unfortunately, we fucking crossed it by a long shot. No pun intended.
You can't be shocked at a situation. If you feel shocked, then you clearly weren't paying attention, and I understand that. But anyone who's paying attention is not shocked. You said it the whole hour. The whole community knows. It's been going on for a decade, at least a decade. The change needs to happen.
All right, with that, John,
let's take us out.
Perfect time for it.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks, don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.